The border outpost of Seko was quiet, too quiet. President Ibrahim Traoré stood at the edge of the observation tower, eyes scanning the mist-covered jungle beyond. The sun was only beginning to rise, casting long orange fingers across the horizon. He had come to inspect the northern defenses himself. It was meant to be a routine visit. It never was. From below, the static of a failing radio buzzed. "Base, this is Alpha 1. Do you copy?" The voice was tight with fear. "We've got movement near Grid 7. Repeat, movement in the tri-line." Then came the sound no soldier wanted to hear. An RPG launch. The explosion rocked the earth beneath the outpost. Concrete cracked. Alarms wailed. Traoré didn't flinch. He turned from the tower, grabbing the comm, fall back to defensive positions. He ordered calmly, "Don't panic, hold the line." But it was too late. Gunfire erupted from the tray line like lightning, tearing open the sky. Men fell, screams echoed. Chaos consumed the compound. Within minutes, the entire unit was overrun. President Traoré was cut off from his guard team, trapped behind a supply container with only a pistol and a combat knife. And someone else, a boy, barely 20, uniform too big, eyes wild. "Who are you?" Traoré asked, breath steady, despite the bullets. "Private Seydou, sir," the young man stammered. They're everywhere." Traoré studied him. He'd seen fear before. But this wasn't just fear. It was something else, conflict. "You armed?" Seydou held up a rifle, hands shaking. "Then we don't die today." The rebels moved fast, precise. They weren't just attacking, they were hunting. Traoré and Seydou crawled through a side trench, the air thick with dust and screams. Every so often, Seydou would flinch, glance backward as if something behind them was chasing more than just bullet. "We need to reach the East Ridge," Traoré said. "There's an abandoned radio tower there. If we can signal reinforcements." "No," Seydou blurted. "That tower's a trap. They mined it yesterday. I overheard 2 rebels talking." Traoré froze. "You overheard rebels? How?" Seydou looked away. I've been listening for weeks." "Infiltrator?" "No, sir. Spy. Inside our own ranks. They thought I was weak, so they talked freely around me. That changed everything." They ducked into the remains of the mess hall. The smell of smoke and metal filled the air. Traoré knelt behind a flipped table, gripping his side. A bullet had grazed him. Seydou pulled out a rag. "May I?" Traoré nodded. The boy was gentle, more skilled than he looked. His hands still shook, but he moved with care. "I've read about you," Seydou said suddenly. "Before the war, before everything." "Read what?" "That you never flinched. That you walked through gunfire like it was rain." Traoré chuckled bitterly. "Stories always sound braver than the truth." "I used to be afraid," Seydou whispered. "Still am, I guess." "Fear's not weakness," Traoré said. "It's knowing the cost and fighting anyway." Seydou nodded. His hands stopped shaking. As the sun climbed higher, they moved toward the northern ridge. Seydou led the way, ducking beneath branches, pointing out tripwires, spotting rebel patrols before they struck. He was scared, but sharp. "You're not what they say," Traoré muttered. Seydou glanced back. "What do they say?" "That you're a coward, that you froze in your first mission. Let others die." "I didn't freeze," Seydou said quietly. "I was told to stand down. The intel was fake. They walked into a slaughter. I survived and they called me coward." Traoré's jaw clenched. "They lied," Seydou continued. "But I kept my head down, pretended to be nothing. That's how I learned their plan." Traoré stopped walking. "What plan?" Seydou turned, his face serious now. "They're building a base. Underground. 3 clicks from here. That's where the attack came from." Traoré's eyes narrowed. "Then we destroy it." The jungle grew denser, the closer they got to the underground base. Traoré and Seydou moved in silence. The only sounds around them, the crunch of dry leaves and distant echoes of battle behind. Smoke from the burning outpost still curled into the sky. The president kept his pace steady, despite the gash on his side. Seydou had offered to carry his pack, but Traoré refused. "I'm not dead yet," he said. "No, sir," Seydou replied, "but you're bleeding like you want to be." Traoré gave a half smile. The boy had bite. He liked that. They paused by a mossy boulder. As Seydou scanned ahead, his eyes flicked left, then right. 2 guards, he whispered. About 40 meters. Light patrol, no dogs. We go around? Seydou shook his head. They're posted near the vent shaft. That's our only entry. Traoré nodded. Quiet, then. They struck fast. Seydou took the first guard with a garrote. The silent kill clumsy, but effective. Traoré neutralized the second with a precise blow to the throat. No noise, no alarm, just stillness. Beneath the brush, hidden between roots, lay a metal grate. Seydou knelt beside it. They use this for air circulation. If we crawl through, it'll take us inside behind their main hall. Is it trapped? Not yet, Seydou said. They only guard the entrance. They think no one's crazy enough to go in from below. They've never met me, Traoré said dryly. The crawl space was barely wide enough to move. Rats scattered as they slid through, sweat pouring from their bodies. Seydou led the way, his breathing shallow. Every few meters, he stopped, placing one hand on the tunnel wall. Listen. Finally, after what felt like an hour, they reached a metal panel. Voices echoed beyond it. Seydou pressed his ear against the wall. It's them. High command. They're in there. Traoré leaned close. How many? 5. Maybe 6. One of them is Mahir, their tactical leader. Can you ID them? Seydou nodded. I've heard them speaking. Mahir has a burn on his left jaw. He smokes constantly. The others are field captains. Explosives? Seydou pulled out a crude satchel charge. Homemade, but it'll work. Traoré took a deep breath. We'll hit them hard, then get out. No speeches. No hesitation. He looked Seydou in the eye. You ready? Seydou hesitated. Then softly, I was born ready. I just didn't know it. They burst through the panel like wool. The room was filled with maps, radio equipment, and armed men mid-conversation. The shock of the breach gave Traoré and Seydou the edge. Within seconds, 2 rebels dropped. Another reached for his gun, but Seydou dropped him with one shot. Center mass. Then the satchel exploded. Flames ripped through the room. Screams, smoke, shrapnel. Mahir stumbled out of the blast, face bleeding, coughing, burning. He aimed at Seydou, then paused. A twisted grin formed on his face. Well, Mahir rasped. I know you. Little Seydou, how's your brother these days? Seydou froze. Traoré turned, gun raised. What did you say? Mahir laughed. Didn't he tell you? Seydou is the little brother of Captain Malik Konaté, the man who led the coup against you 3 years ago. Seydou's face went pale. Shut up, he muttered. Your brother died screaming. Mahir said. And you? What do you think they'll say now? You're a traitor's blood. Before he could speak again, Traoré shot him once in the chest. Mahir crumpled. Silence returned. Only the crackling fire remained, and Seydou's ragged breath. He sank to the floor, back against the wall, head in his hands. Traoré stood over him, quiet. You knew, he said after a long pause. Seydou nodded. Yes, sir. And you still saved me. I didn't ask for the blood in my veins, Seydou whispered, but I chose what to do with it. Traoré looked at him for a long moment. Then he sat beside him. In war, he said, we don't choose our pasts, only our next step. They sat in silence for a long time, 2 soldiers in the ruins of rebellion, surrounded by fire and blood, but bound now by truth. The smoke was beginning to clear. President Traoré stood slowly, muscles aching, ears still ringing from the blast. His shirt was singed and soot clung to his face like war paint. Behind him, Seydou rose shakily, blinking away tears and ash. Come on, Traoré said. We're not done yet. They climbed a narrow stairwell behind the ruined command room. Each step echoed like a drumbeat in the dark. The emergency lights overhead flickered, casting their shadows in stutters of red and white. At the top of the stairs, Seydou stopped. I know this hallway, he said. There's an armory 2 doors down. Then we resupply. They pushed through a cracked steel door into a half-lit room filled with crates of weapons. The smell of oil and metal was overpowering. Seydou opened a crate and pulled out 2 rifles and several magazines. Traoré examined a small satchel of grenades and tucked a combat shotgun under his arm. Seydou looked at him. "Are we still going for extraction?" "No," Traoré said, loading a magazine. "We finish what we started. If we pull out now, they'll scatter and rebuild. We strike now. End it here." "You mean blow the whole base?" "I mean collapse it. Burn the files. Take down every server and make sure no one walks out to rebuild it elsewhere." Seydou nodded slowly. "Then let's leave nothing behind." They made their way deeper into the base. It was larger than Seydou had ever imagined. Steel corridors, surveillance stations, holding cells. They passed empty bunks and trashed mess halls, the remnants of an army built in shadows. At one intersection, they heard voices. 2 rebels, young, joking about looting the ruins above. Seydou signaled Traoré, then slipped into the shadows. Moments later, both guards were unconscious. "Not dead?" Traoré asked. Seydou shrugged. "They're just kids." Following orders, Traoré nodded in approval. "Mercy doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." They reached the server room. Rows of blinking towers lined the walls, storing decades of rebel intelligence. Maps, names, photos, operations. Seydou stared. "Everything's here. Plans for future attacks, sleeper cells, targets abroad." Traoré scanned the monitors. "We copy what we can, then wipe the rest." It took 10 minutes to transfer the critical data onto Seydou's drive. As Traoré armed the incendiary charges, Seydou paused in front of a terminal. "I found something," he said, his voice tight. "What?" "My brother, Malik." They had files on him, even after his death. They used him. Traoré walked over. The screen showed intercepted footage. Videos of Malik's failed coup, edited speeches, voice samples. "They turned him into a martyr," Seydou said. "A symbol for their cause." "They lied to you," Traoré muttered. "They used your brother's image to recruit the angry and the lost." Seydou clenched his jaw. "Then I destroy the lie." He pulled the plug. The screen went black. With the explosives armed, they moved to the escape tunnel, a narrow maintenance shaft that led out behind a waterfall about a kilometer north. But just as they entered, alarms shrieked overhead. "Damn it," Traoré muttered. They found the bodies. Footsteps thundered behind them. Seydou turned, rifle raised. "Go. I'll cover." "You're not staying," Traoré barked. "This is my fight, and you're not alone." They pressed forward together, firing behind them as rebels poured into the hall. Grenades exploded. Bullets ricocheted off steel. Traoré took a hit to the shoulder, but kept moving. Seydou dropped 2 more enemies, blood and sweat streaming down his face. Finally, they reached the tunnel's end. The waterfall roared ahead. Cold, clean freedom. Seydou triggered the detonator. Behind them, the base erupted in a wave of flame and dust, collapsing inward as the roof caved. They dove through the water, landing hard on the forest floor below. Alive, they lay on their backs, gasping, staring at the sky. Traoré laughed weakly. "Still think you're a coward?" Seydou chuckled. "I think I'm too tired to care." Traoré turned his head. "You saved more lives today than some soldiers do in a lifetime." "I just did what needed doing." "No, you did what others wouldn't." Silence settled between them. Finally, Traoré sat up. "We radio the capital, let them know it's done." "And then?" Seydou asked. Traoré looked toward the horizon. "Then we go home." The airstrip outside Ouagadougou shimmered under the afternoon sun. The military transport roared down, wheels screeching as it touched down. A convoy of armored vehicles waited on the tarmac, engines rumbling. Medics rushed forward. Reporters had been kept at bay. Only a handful of high-ranking officials stood waiting in silence. When the rear hatch opened, President Ibrahim Traoré stepped down first. His arm bandaged, his uniform singed but dignified. A cheer erupted, but he raised his hand, stopping it. His expression was grim. He turned in motion. Behind him, Seydou emerged. He looked different now. No longer the nervous boy behind the supply crates. He walked taller, chin raised, uniform caked in dried blood and dirt. His eyes were tired but sharp. Traoré rested a hand on his shoulder as they walked together toward the waiting command staff. "This is Private Seydou," he said loudly, addressing the room. "He's the reason I'm alive. He's the reason that base no longer exists." There was silence. Then came the applause. Not the staged kind. This one rippled slowly. Officers nodding, soldiers clapping, one by one until it echoed across the tarmac. Seydou blinked, stunned. For the first time, he wasn't invisible. Later that evening, Seydou sat alone on the steps of the presidential barracks, clean now in fresh fatigues, a teacup trembling slightly in his hand. His body ached. His mind buzzed. He didn't hear Traoré approach until the president sat beside him. "You've been quiet." Seydou didn't look up. "I don't know what to do now." "You rest." "I don't know how." Traoré nodded. "I didn't either. Not at your age." They sat in silence a while. Seydou finally spoke. "Why didn't you kill me when you found out?" Traoré didn't flinch. "Because you're not your brother." "But what if I had betrayed you?" "Then I'd have died, and you'd live with that weight." Seydou turned. "Do you really believe I'm one of you?" Traoré met his gaze. "You've bled for your country, fought to redeem a name not even your fault. You're more one of us than most." That made Seydou lower his head. "I don't know if I can carry it," he whispered. "You already have," Traoré said. "You just don't see it yet." News of the mission spread within 24 hours. The rebel base's destruction sent shockwaves through enemy lines. Several sleeper cells self-destructed rather than be captured. Propaganda streams collapsed overnight, but not everyone celebrated. Opposition leaders in parliament began whispering. Skeptics demanded an investigation. Old names resurfaced. Captain Malik Konaté's history returned to the headlines. Why was his brother part of the mission? One headline asked. Traoré protects traitors' blood, another claimed. Seydou saw the articles. At first he tried to ignore them, but they multiplied. Videos, editorials, calls for transparency. The country praised him, but it also questioned him. The ghosts of his brother's legacy were clawing at his back. It came to a head when a reporter snuck through the base perimeter and confronted him in the mess hall. "You were raised by the same man who betrayed the country," she said. "What makes you different?" Seydou didn't flinch. He just said, "I bled for the flag you hide behind." Then he walked away. The video went viral in hours. That night, Traoré called a press conference. Flanked by military officers, national flags, and Seydou standing at his side. The president spoke with fire. "Some say Private Seydou should be judged by his brother's crimes," Traoré said. "Then let me ask, how many of us would pass such judgment if the sins of our blood were used against us?" He turned slightly, placing a medal in his hand. "For bravery beyond the call of duty, and for loyalty proven in the fire of war, I hereby award Private Seydou the Medal of Honor." He pinned it on Seydou's chest. Seydou didn't cry, but his hands shook as the crowd roared. 1 week later, the sun rose over the national parade grounds. It was Independence Day in Burkina Faso. Tens of thousands filled the capital streets, waving flags, cheering, faces painted with red, green, and gold. Drones floated overhead, capturing the grand procession of soldiers, tanks, and school children marching in perfect sync. But at the center of it all stood a single platform. President Ibrahim Traoré stepped forward as the crowd hushed. He looked out over the sea of people and then turned to the soldier standing beside him. Private Seydou. His uniform was pristine. The Medal of Honor gleamed on his chest. But more than that, it was his face, calm, steady, unshaken, that made the nation take notice. Traoré raised the microphone. "A week ago, I stood shoulder to shoulder with a man I did not know. A man the world called a coward. A man whose name was stained by the blood of another." The crowd listened, silent. "That man saved my life. That man destroyed the rebel stronghold. That man stood when others ran. That man is Private Seydou." Applause thundered. Seydou blinked, swallowing hard. His hand instinctively touched the medal. He wasn't dreaming. Traoré continued. "In our country, we do not judge people by where they come from. We judge them by what they do when the fire comes. And when it did, he didn't run, he burned." After the speech, Seydou stood near the edge of the platform, breathing it all in. Young soldiers approached him asking for photos. A woman hugged him without warning. A child handed him a small flag and said, "I want to be like you." He smiled, overwhelmed. Behind him, Traoré approached. "You handled that well," the president said. "I still don't like cameras," Seydou replied. "Good. That makes two of us." They laughed. Then Traoré said something unexpected. "I want you at my side." Seydou blinked. "Sir, I'm forming a special unit. Intelligence and ground response. You've already proven yourself 10 times over. I want you to lead the next generation." Seydou hesitated. I don't know if I'm ready." Traoré nodded. "Neither did I when the war found me." He extended his hand. Seydou looked at it, then shook it. "Yes, sir." That evening, Seydou visited a quiet cemetery on the outskirts of the city. He walked alone, past rows of simple markers, until he found one that hadn't been visited in years. Captain Malik Konaté, 1979-2022, remembered in silence. Seydou stood before it, the medal still pinned to his chest. He knelt. "I didn't come to curse you," he said. "I came to tell you I forgive you." His voice trembled, but he didn't cry. "You made your choice. I made mine, and now I carry the name forward." A breeze swept across the cemetery, lifting dust from the stone. Seydou stood again, saluted, and walked away. Months passed. Under Seydou's leadership, the newly formed unit dismantled 3 rebel sleeper cells, rescued over a dozen kidnapped villagers, and neutralized arms shipments meant to restart the insurgency. He never spoke much during briefings, but his team followed him without question. He was no longer invisible. He was the soldier they all hoped to become. One morning, as dawn broke over the capital, a reporter asked Traoré during a press interview, "Mr. President, what makes someone worthy of the nation's highest honor?" Traoré smiled slightly, thoughtful. "Simple," he said. "A soldier who stands in the fire not because he hates what's in front of him, but because he loves what's behind him. And somewhere beyond the noise and medals and legacy, the last soldier still walked forward, not for vengeance, not for redemption, but for peace."